welcome to ASAP, your Afrikan Social Activism Playbook. I am one of your hosts, T. Jamal, joined by my sister, Michelee. How are you doing this morning?
I'm pretty good, bro. Can't complain much. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm healthy, staying safe. So how about you and the family?
I'm good. We're good, trying to navigate our way through this crazy 2020. It's been a year and we are 8 months in. So,
Whew,
you
it
know,
ain't over yet.
we we are making it through and we're trying to, stay positive. But the funny thing about this whole pandemic is that it has shut people in, but I have been in more contact with people than I am usually. I feel more connected now than I was before, which is so weird.
That's
But
such a
that's
yeah,
thanks to
that's a word
technology.
right there.
Right. Yeah, man, because what it did was though for African Unity Initiative, it expanded our borders because we can't do any live activities, right? We were supposed to be doing live activities with our communities in Sierra Leone. We had
Right.
things planned for Guinea this year, planned in Atlanta for like we had this whole bringing the neighbor back to the hood campaign with the clean the block party that we started 2 years ago, but we were really coming into how to really make it happen this year. And we had sponsors lined up and it was just like getting slapped in the face. Um, but then when I looked, I was like, man, I haven't really been able to really focus on our other communities because I've been focusing all of my attention on Atlanta because the US is where most of our funding is going to come from. So
Mhm.
now that I have the capacity to like really back focus on everybody, and now that everybody is more acceptable of this virtual type scenario of even receiving content, making content, being active, community development virtually, economic development virtually. So many different people have made that necessary pivot that I was like, oh, we can definitely do that. So,
Right.
that's how this channel came to be and this show. So, for those of you who are watching and are new, this is the African Unity Initiative YouTube and Facebook channels. And this is our Afrikan Social Activism Playbook show. And what that is we are actually working on a playbook to bring honor back to those who came before us, not only in just acknowledging the work that they did, but understanding that they laid out the model and the path toward our victory. They fought in this long black freedom struggle and they from organizations like the Black Panther Party, from self-defense, the UNIA, SNCC, CORE, figures like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Martin Delaney, Marcus Garvey, all these names that we need to take their strategy and implement it into our activism today and in the fight of what we're doing today. And no need to reinvent the wheel. They've already
Exactly.
laid it out for us.
That's the thing. We
What
don't
are
have
your
to start
thoughts on
from
that,
square
sis?
one.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we know this. We don't have to start from square one, and that happens to be like an issue that we find. I mean, through a lot of different examples in our lives, like even looking at a lot of our families when we don't, we're not using what resources and stuff we had before, and so each generation is having to recreate. You know what I mean? Rather than us establishing something has already been established for us. It's already been tried and
Right.
true. You know what I mean? But today we have a different situation. We have more access to things. we're in places of power where where our ancestors didn't have before. And so we can use the same blueprint and apply it today. And, so we don't have to figure it out. We're not running around, scrambling around trying to figure out what to do. We know what to do. We just have to apply it.
Right. And because if you look at the way that we've been addressing the current situations of injustice, whether it be, first of all, I want to say justice for Breonna Taylor. Those people need to be arrested, indicted, charged, and prosecuted.
Like yesterday.
Everybody involved, the officers, whoever signed the warrant, whoever signed any of that to make that happen, need to be arrested, fired, and all of the above. And so justice for Breonna Taylor. We are still seeking justice for Ahmaud Arbery. The people got arrested, but it's not over until that court date comes. We want to make sure that the people who murdered George Floyd in cold blood get what is coming to them as well. So, but what we're doing this playbook is because a lot of this activism, we know about the marches, right? We know about the protests. We know about the boycotts. We know surface levels about them because we only learn the surface in our formal educations. And so this is about digging deep into the legends of the past and the strategy that they put into the work that they did. And Michelee and I and a few other people who work with African Unity Initiative are actually writing an actual playbook, and it's going to be plays and scenarios of different things that Black people around the world go through. And we're going to be giving you the options of how to respond to those scenarios, and coming from what people have already done before us. Like, this is how Du Bois would have dealt with this situation. This is how Booker T would have dealt with this situation. This is how Garvey and his followers dealt with these types of situations, giving people options and not pitting our legends against one another.
Exactly.
Their visions were not mutually exclusive, and that all of these things can work together in harmony. And some people like to be in the background. So we will have background activities that you can do to still be involved. Some people like to be outspoken in the forefront. There are outspoken forefront activities to do. There are financial contribution activities to do. There are, sideline activities to do. Everybody doesn't have to play the same role, but every role is valuable. Like, it's called a playbook because I kind of am putting it together in like offense and defense plays for, okay, what do we do when we are inciting the incident? What are we doing when something is happening and we have to respond to it? That's us on defense. And so it's going to be broken down into terms that are very interesting. We're going to be using a lot of sports terminology in the book and on this podcast. And, it just kind of bring a different flair to how people talk about social justice. People talk about it in the same old way back and forth, and we want to just bring some new energy to what it is.
Because you like the Shaq to my Kobe, you know what I mean? Or
right.
I'm Scotty, exactly. you Mike, so everybody got the role to play, and for us to have a successful game.
We need everybody in. And let's just take basketball. So you mentioned Shaq and Kobe, but without those championships got put on Robert Horry's back a lot. Yeah. Robert Horry hit those dead shots and come into the game as the sixth man and knocks it down. But nobody talks about Robert Horry. Yeah. Robert Horry has 7 NBA championship rings. And that is nothing to sneeze at because he plays his role. He played his position. When his number got called, he was ready, right? Yep. Every time. And so that is where some people are going to be. Like, everybody knows Martin Luther King's name, but not everybody knows Joseph E. Lowry. Not everybody
Right.
knows Andrew Young. Not everybody knew John Lewis, and rest in power to John Lewis, and
Hmm.
also rest in power to C.T. Vivian, who
Right.
was, all of them were very active and involved in what was going on. We have a comment from Linda. We have no excuses. That's
No
right.
excuses.
We have to do this, and I love that African Social Activism Playbook ended up being ASAP, because there's no time to waste. We
No
have to
time.
do this immediately. We have to do this
Because
like yesterday.
exactly, because the thing is, it's going to take time. It's going to take generations. We might not see, even like, like our brother Martin said, we might not see the promised land.
Right.
So we have to set it up now. And I mean, yeah, it starts with the youth as well. What
Mhm.
they'll be the driving force. You see the young, well, how a lot of people are talking about right now. We see all the young people leading the movement now, and it was like that in the past,
It's
which we'll
always
get
that way.
into a little later too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
always that way. It's always young people, and they have the most energy, and
right.
they have the most diversified new ideas. And as we age and we get into that wisdom, we have
Mhm.
to be able to use that wisdom to guide that energy of the youth. And
Definitely.
yeah, that's just one of the things that we wanted to make sure that everybody understands what it is that ASAP is, why we're here. We're going to be here every Tuesday through Friday for you as like your ride to work if you're in the US, and if you where
Right.
my sister is, it's your afternoon roll. And
Right.
we just bringing that global African perspective to
Mhm.
how we do things. So global African perspective, we're bridging the gap, right? So we're gonna
Yeah.
move into our next segment, which is straight truth, no chaser. So every day we are going to be talking about things that are happening in our world, but we're gonna bring it to you from our perspective, and we're gonna try to be as honest as possible with no pity pat, no, feeling sorry for people, and just making sure that we tell it like it is, because we don't have time for, babysitting people.
I'm
So
telling
today
you,
we're
bro,
gonna,
bro. I'm
right,
honest. I know you honest. Ain't no sugarcoating around here. We about to keep it
right.
real because we got things to do.
So as an educator, former or present, we know that coronavirus is happening right now. The pandemic is real, right? The cases keep going up because people keep taking it as a joke. And now
Mhm.
we see that different school is about to come back. So we saw the school year last, the spring semester end early, and students went home, elementary through college. And now it's about that time. Labor Day is coming up, and school doors are about to be open again. And we see people, namely the administration here in the US, trying to force people to open the schools up. And you said something very interesting earlier, and you were like, when has schools really been like a federal concern?
Mhm.
So share your thoughts on that, and what do you think about people and putting their children in those environments in schools? Do you think it's safe? Do you think it's smart? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the idea right now, to be honest. I mean, I don't have children of my own at the moment, but as an educator, and I taught kindergarten, that age group especially, I think it would be unsafe. I know how children spread germs. They're not going to be careful. I saw a meme, someone talking about how, you send your child home with a Paw Patrol mask on. They're going to come back with a Spider-Man mask on because they didn't trade it with somebody on the schoolyard. Like, it's just not, this is not going to be a wise situation. It's not a wise decision for them to make. But like I did mention to you earlier, I think it is just kind of funny that we see like the federal government being real involved in this decision, whereas I would think it would be more so in the states, the school districts or what, however local they'll keep it for this type of situation, because I know some states are more behind than others. Um, but anyway, so I feel a little funny about that
Yeah,
situation.
so
I think it's a little too soon myself.
yeah, I definitely agree because like here in Atlanta, I remember about a couple of weeks ago when they first started talking about it. Like Gwinnett County was talking about having the option of doing the virtual and having the option of being like in the classroom in person. And they were
Okay.
saying that if you chose either option, you couldn't, reverse it in the middle of the school year. So if you chose to be in
Wow.
person, you had to be in person all year. If you chose to be virtual, you had to be virtual all year. And then they finally came around and it was just like, it's all virtual. And then
Yeah.
APS came out, was like, it's all virtual. DeKalb County not playing any games with anybody. They're like, no. Like they didn't even waver back and forth. They
Right.
just straight out said, no, that's not happening. And then my wife was telling me that she was listening to Governor Cuomo in New York talking about schools, and he was saying something similar to what you were saying. He was like, this is a state's issue. Like the administration has nothing to do with how we
Right.
are running our schools. And, this is going to be, we need to protect the children. And,
Definitely.
and exactly like you said, how are we going to control elementary school children? Like the Paw Patrol masks being traded for a Spider-Man mask. It
You know
sounds
that's gonna
funny, but
happen.
it's
You know it's
real.
gonna
That is
happen.
so real. And they just are not understanding fully because,
Hmm.
a lot of people talk to their children as just children and they don't
Right.
sit down and explain it to them about why the realities of this is necessary. And even at that age, they may not fully have the grasp of it, right? And so
Hmm.
it's a lot to put on those students, and it's a lot of pressure to put on those educators, those teachers. And then
Right.
at the same time, but you have the issue of people who work check to check, and
Right.
they don't have the time to necessarily homeschool, and they
Exactly.
don't have the funds to have the babysitter. And who wants to babysit during coronavirus? Like it's just
Right.
it's so many elements that go into just this one issue that
Right.
it makes it so difficult. I understand people on both sides. I understand the parents who want their children to be in school. I understand the schools wanting to protect the children and their staff and the faculty. And it's just a difficult decision to make. But one funny thing is, they asked Harvard and some other universities were they lowering tuition, and they said no. So, what do you think about
Oh.
that?
Whew. I mean, I don't know how I would feel going there, and what am I paying for again? What?
Exactly.
But
Right.
so I think, yeah, because these businesses at this point, these institutions that run off the profit, they
Mhm.
are not. They're still trying to figure out how they'll stay afloat because the government hasn't figured out how they're gonna, supply everyone's needs. But at the same time, they're not enforcing. They're giving too much leeway and not enforcing, just these regulations to keep everybody safe because. And I'll tell you, honestly, it's shameful looking at y'all in the States. I'm sorry, brother. Y'all y'all tripping out there because I'm in the Middle East and we are already in like stage 3 of reopening. So like we have
Mhm.
restaurants opened already. Of course, still social distancing, and you still wear a mask to go in and out of the building. And things like that. And they even have like applications that'll show, so you can show your testing status or whatever, if you've been diagnosed with it or whatever, so they can track who's been exposed to it. So they have like
Mhm.
different regulations set in place. They have fines, like outrageous
See,
fines,
and
since
that's
the
what has
very
to happen.
beginning. Yes, since the very beginning of this whole thing, like earlier this year, they put fines in place, and they threatened people to be deported or get arrested or whatever if you didn't want to follow the guidelines and wear a mask. You were going to be out of luck. But that's how they were able to keep keep things under control in a lot of these areas. And so, like I said, we already have, places reopening. People, they regulated like around 10, 15 people gathering places, you know what I mean, things like that, so that people
Mhm.
can choose to be around other people, of course, people who you trust. So I've been around,
Right.
friends who I know they're taking the same precautions as I am. You can't even get in the Uber
Mhm.
without a mask. Your Uber driver can't choose to not wear a mask, you know what I mean? So yeah, y'all
Exactly.
need to tighten up
They
out there, people. You
they
need to tighten
say the
up.
same things. They say the same things over here. It's just people have politicized wearing a mask, and you
Yeah.
know how it is over here. If you red or you're blue, then you can't see common sense. You only
Hmm.
see your political affiliation. And if somebody
Exactly.
on that side says something about, like, you know, oh, wearing a mask is this, or it's a democratic ploy to do this, this, and this. And we've had the actual president say multiple times that coronavirus wasn't real at one point. And it's just shameful because you sharing that message, people are vulnerable. People are susceptible to
Hmm.
foolishness, and
Hmm.
it's just very dangerous. We don't have time to play right now. And when it
Right.
comes to the schools and the children, we have to make sure that we protect them. So
Hmm.
let's see. We have a question coming from the perspective of being educators. Would you feel comfortable in the classroom with the children? So would you feel comfortable in the classroom as a teacher?
I personally will not. I mean, for
Yeah.
myself, I wouldn't feel safe myself. I don't feel safe going out and being in certain environments now as an adult, responsible only for myself. So if I'm responsible for a number of children, who are not my children as well, and like I said, I've lived a relatively healthy life for the past 12 years, being plant-based, mostly. And
Right.
and I haven't even had like a common cold too often, not really much at all. And I've gotten the flu from my kindergartner. So it's, that's germs being spread, and I couldn't help that, and so
Yep.
I know I definitely I wouldn't feel safe
Because
doing
that's
that
the
for
age.
myself and other children. Mhm.
That's the age when they're just now developing. They're just now learning about hygiene and how to wash your hand. That's what you're teaching them,
Exactly.
like pre-K to maybe
Exactly.
even up to about third grade. I trust third graders to like wash their hands. And even sometimes when I was teaching elementary school, I would have to remind them. But you don't know what type of bad habits people have, and you're touching
Exactly.
objects all day. You don't wash your hands every time after you touch a doorknob. You don't wash your hands every
Hmm.
time after you enter a room. So you don't know. And when we still are finding out how it's actually spread, it's spreading
Exactly.
so strangely, because it'll be somebody in a family who is positive, and then everybody else in the same household are negative, and it affects certain people. And we know that, the immunocompromised are heavily impacted. And so
Hmm.
we just have to make sure that we take care of each other and not be so selfish. But that's an issue here in the US. Um,
Right.
that's why
So,
it's
because
difficult to
let
even have community.
exactly. So I saw some the other day. I think someone tweeted saying that where they messed up was telling people that it's up to you that you would be responsible. You know what I mean,
Right.
for not spreading it. So when you tell people that they're responsible for it, they're like, well, no, I'm not gonna. If it takes us, as an individual to save the community, people will be that selfish to not care. The comments that I get from family and friends who refuse to wear a mask because they think it's fake. We see at this point, like I said before, we see, like, most of us know at least somebody who knows somebody who's died
Right.
from it. And I'm hearing people every day, you know what I mean? And it's just a shame. Like, it's no, even if you don't believe in it, like that, there are people dying, whether you believe in it or not, you know.
Right.
And so we don't have time to be chancing, especially if you have children or elderly parents, or, you know, people around you. You have customers going in and out every day, and you are not taking those precautions. Like, it's just not safe, it's not smart, and this is not the time to try to prove that point, you know.
So you shared a resource earlier
Mhm.
about people who are in the position of having to homeschool.
Yes.
So tell the people a little bit more about African American homeschool moms.
Yeah, so I ran across this website, African American Homeschool Moms, and they share freebies, like worksheets and different school resources for children, and these are for parents who, you know, who homeschool. And so that's just one resource that I found, and you can find different ones by just a simple Google search. There are tons of online resources, a lot of DIY. I do a lot of DIY projects and things like that. So you can find ideas on Pinterest, if you're struggling trying to figure out, even if you need to know the level that your child is on, and how to help them with that. You can also find a lot of YouTube vloggers who share their homeschooling experience, and like educators, or just people, parents like you know, who will be at home and trying to figure this thing out. But yeah, I would say definitely don't let the children fall behind. You know, there are plenty of resources out there to help you with this process. And let me just say, because this is something I'm passionate about, and it's something, an idea that I've had for years now, and I'm applying it now with some parents who've asked me to assist them with homeschooling their children. And I think it would be important, especially now, to create or find a community of homeschooling parents, or you know, other relatives, friends, people who can help you do this, because you don't have to do it alone. You can, you know what I mean, people that you trust. It can be in your neighborhood, it can be, you know, friends or family, you know. And you can share responsibilities. Someone can do arts and crafts, someone can teach
Mm.
science and math, you know, and different things like that. So I think people should definitely take advantage of all the resources out there.
And I think the idea of small little clusters of homeschool is good
Hmm.
because school is school is there for education, yes, but it's also there for socialization and like
Right.
personal interaction with other people and learning
Hmm.
how to, you know, live in society. So having your children be around other children their age, uh, you know, safely during this time, like
Definitely.
build those clusters in your neighborhood, or like there are homeschool programs online that you can actually meet and speak with the other parents, and you guys can have
Hmm.
like play dates and things like that safely. Um, and just, you know, think outside the box. There's so many options, and everything doesn't have to look exactly the same. Do what works for you in a safe manner. You know, and that we will be looking out for the parents and the educators. As
Hmm.
two educators, we understand the the stress levels that everybody is going through right now. So just try to stay motivated, try to keep your heads up, and you know, things will, this too will pass, and
Hmm.
we'll be prepared the next time anything like this happens, because I'm
Yeah.
sure nobody had this in their contingency plans.
Right.
Businesses are otherwise, big
It
or
was so
small. We see
sudden.
some situations about to, yeah, it was sudden, but it was like, okay, I heard about like Ebola, I heard about Zika, I heard
Hmm.
about Spanish, all these other things that have happened within like the last decade, but they always stay at the epidemic level where they don't go global. And
Hmm.
so we just didn't expect it to really go global because we heard about it
Right.
back in like December. Um,
Hmm.
but it was just in China. So
Right.
it's global now, people. It's here. We'll get through it, but just be creative, and we have to, you know, love and support each other. And
Right.
one of the reasons that this platform exists. So we talked about what the social activism playbook is, and what we want to do in this section, we call it the highlight reel. So we want to highlight figures from our past who have been very influential, and also figures that people may not know about. And we will also talk about figures that are more prominent, but we'll talk about aspects of their life and their work that aren't really shared that much either. So today we start off with, for me, the most influential person of the Black freedom struggle.
That's mama.
And
That's
you can
mama
add
right there.
that. I feel like like when I learned about Ella Baker, the Fundi, I was so moved by the way that she operated that I
Mm-hmm.
modeled everything that I do after her participatory democracy, after her
Yeah.
empowerment. So, for those of you guys who don't know, so Ella Baker was a civil rights activist, but she was so much more than this. she
So much more.
was she was one of the first female presidents of an NAACP branch.
Mm-hmm.
She helped bring the Young Negro Cooperative League into the forefront, and helped economic advancement in that way. She was the type of person that even when she was an elder, she always respected the voice of the youth.
Mm-hmm.
One of the key elements of her participatory democracy strategy, her methodology, is that she used to get into like philosophical and strategic debates with Dr. King all the time, because when Dr. King came to town, it was like, oh man, Dr. King is here. Everybody has to straighten up. Everybody has to listen to, the message that he's disseminating, and we have to follow that road. But when Ella Baker came to town, she scoped and looked at, okay, who is the de facto leader in this place? And she would uplift that person. So it could be someone from like a local farmer who is just the leader in the community that people just go to because they have his respect,
Mm-hmm.
or the local big mama who everybody in the community kind of goes around to get information from, or they look to her to guide the community. She would go to people who not necessarily had, titled positions, but were
Right.
influential in their community, and
Exactly.
disseminate her message through that person, because she knew that the people already listen to that person. Why do they
Mm-hmm.
need a new voice? They just
Right.
need the content. It was never about her getting the credit. It was about
Exactly.
her getting the work done. Is the work
Mm-hmm.
going to get done? Then great. I'm good. I don't care if she said it. Like, I don't need to be in the spotlight. I don't care if anybody ever knows my name.
Right.
Strong
And
people don't need strong leaders.
exactly. And so, she is often described as like the one, like leading quietly. She's like literally the backbone of the civil rights movement and a lot of the organizations that followed, because she was an elder who she respected the young people and the people who weren't
Right.
lifted up as as the leader. And I feel like Cornel West says something. I was listening to him speak about Ella Baker, and he says something like power, she was both like powerless and I'm sorry, leaderless and leaderful. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like this is the way that she kind of like you just described, like kind of molded these or like kind of advised or guided it into that, to where it wasn't centered on one person. Because I think even as it relates to it today, in the
Mm-hmm.
current struggle, because it hasn't ended. We're still in it today. We see,
Right.
like, even with Black Lives Matter and different local organizations, where people are like, Well, who? We looking like owls. Okay, a lot of people looking
Right.
like and sounding like owls. Like, who's our leader? Who's our leader? What, and it's like you are the leader. We
Right.
are the leaders. We don't need one person in that, because let me tell you how it sets us up for failure when we do focus on one leader. That one leader is
Mhm.
still human, like you and I, and they can be corrupted, and they don't even have to do anything. It can be a leader who, you know what I mean, they're living a normal life, and you don't have to be perfect, but a lot of people, in order to follow that person's lead, everything about them has to be perfect. If they live a certain lifestyle that you don't like, their sexuality, their gender, their age, whatever, any people will find any excuse to deem someone unacceptable,
Like
or
set
you know what I
impossible
mean, or
standards that they themselves could
exactly.
never live by.
Ever, ever. Like, what have you done? What are you doing? And that's how we continue to, like, it's like that crab in a barrel mentality, because
Hmm.
honestly, and it's because it's honestly, it's really brave for a lot of people to step out into the forefront, especially after all of those experiences of or all of those examples of our leaders from the past being targeted, and
Right.
taken out because they were already in the front and they already had a following. So it's already a bold move to put yourself out there. And then it takes time, dedication. A lot of these leaders, or people, who we see as leaders now, they can't keep a regular job, because if you're dedicated to the movement, you know what I mean, it takes time, it takes,
Hmm.
and you have people criticizing, well, they're getting donations, and are they just getting rich off of people's money, they stealing from people, and it's like, guys, we can't be so stuck on this poor righteous leader. You know what I mean? We
The
cannot be. It's going to take money. It's going to take planning, organizing, all of this stuff. So we just
and
got to
it's
be
it's
patient
so
with each other.
insane that you want your leader to walk around wearing sackcloth, but you're walking around in Gucci, and it's
Brother,
like Gucci on your shirt and Yeezys on your
boy,
feet, and it's like,
boy,
nah,
don't
but
let the
you
hair be
who
done. Don't
dedicated to
let
the
the hair
people,
be done. Yes.
right?
Don't let them
And
be
it's
driving
like,
a nice car, like nothing, because we have this idea that, oh, well, if you're really down, then you're gonna be poor, and you're gonna be, you know what I mean? And it's like, we
it's
gotta really
ridiculous.
be
It
smarter.
makes
We gotta be smarter.
absolutely no
Yeah.
sense, because if we stay with these poor leaders, then
Mm-hmm.
our advancement in a capitalistic system where funds are necessary to make sure that the fight is sustainable, we're
Hello.
not going to get anywhere. It just
Hello.
doesn't make any logical sense. And so, one of the things that I loved about Ella Baker, though, is that she empowered people. She saw
Mm-hmm.
people. She
Mm-hmm.
saw your potential. That's one of
Right.
the reasons that she got the moniker Fundi. Fundi is a term that can be found in multiple African languages. It can be found in Kiswahili, it can be found in Zulu, it can be found up and down the coast of many African languages. And it just means a teacher, but not just a teacher, somebody who is willing to share information with
Mm-hmm.
the purpose of the next generation being able to take that baton and carry it. Somebody who can see that, okay, maybe this new way of doing things is the way to go. Rebecca was one of the only elders who supported the sit-ins. The sit-ins were seen by the elder ministers and the more conservative civil rights activists as too radical.
Right.
Now, when we learn about the sit-ins, we learn about it all in conjunction with all the other activities and protests and marches. But we,
Mm-hmm.
like we said, we're breaking down the reality of what that time was like. Because the way we
Right.
learn Black history is like one flat surface. There are people who believe that, Frederick Douglass and Martin Luther King lived at the same time, because
Right.
we're taught about them in the same
Exactly.
sentence, right?
We
So
literally have like maybe one or two chapters in school. So,
there's no time delineation. We don't know how
Mhm.
long and how far the struggle has been because of the way that it is taught to us, which is why we, as even Black people, sometimes we will we will limit or minimize how long we've been in this, or how tragic and traumatic our experience as Black people has been.
Yeah.
So not to minimize that, but Ella Baker understood, okay, these young people are sitting at these counters and they're putting themselves, they're inciting the incident. And we want to make sure that we continue to talk about that. That's offense. So when we talk about the social activism playbook, we're going to have offensive and defensive plays. The offense is when you're on the attack, when you have the ball, when you
Right.
make the decision to, okay, we're going to do this action, and they're going to have to respond to us. But we already have the plan in place, because the first 4 people who started those sit-ins in North Carolina, those 4 North Carolina A&T students, they had a plan. They went in there with some white allies who were like, okay, we're gonna go in and they are gonna, serve us, but we'll have like a path of exit for you guys to get out safely. So they sat at the lunch counter. It was planning. It took time, but
Yep.
Ella Baker saw that energy. So those 4 started, and then it sparked. People started doing it in Atlanta. College students started to do it at Howard, at Morehouse, at Spelman, at FAMU, at Tuskegee. It just started this movement of young students doing sit-ins and really just provoking the violence. And so what it was about is they are calling us, the Black people, brutes and ignorant and ultra violent.
Right.
But let's show that it's actually them.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's and for that to work, for nonviolence to work, you have to have media coverage. You have to control your narrative so that nobody else can say that your good can be spoken of as bad. But even the Black ministers were looking down on the students doing the sit-ins. And Ella Baker, who was older than all of them, said there's merit in what they're doing.
Right.
And she told those students, she told a young John Lewis, she told a young Stokely Carmichael, do not, when they come around, make sure that you create your own organization. Make sure that you don't just become a junior part of the NAACP. They already exist. They have their ways. Don't just become a junior member of the SCLC. They already have their path. This is your path. Forge your path, young people. And she's the person who gathered them together to form the student nonviolent coordinating committee. And she said, I'm not going to be the leader of this organization. It's going to be coming from you guys. And she took herself, because they would have let her be the first president or whatever, because she organized them in one place. And she was like, no, this is your movement. You started it. You started these activities. You know where you need to go. And she trusted the young people to have the wherewithal to do the work, because in her youth, she was already doing the work. And I just wanted to make sure that we tell people about Ella Baker. I've seen over the years that her name is becoming more and more prominent, and it should be. It should be at the tip of everybody's tongue, because I mentioned the SELC. A lot of people don't know she was behind that as well. She wrote the charter for the SELC, her and 2 other gentlemen, and we'll talk about them at a later date as well. But she was just so influential. She was influential from the 1930s all the way up until the 1980s. And if you ask anybody who had any contact with her, they will let you know that she is such an inspiration, just like you were saying with Cornel West and how he spoke about her. And it's just necessary for us to know what has already been done so that we can do it again. Sometimes you need to know what's happening. We need to know history to avoid doing the wrong, but we also need to know history to actually repeat it so that we can borrow from those strategies so that we aren't reinventing a wheel that already exists, that already
Exactly.
exists in mint condition. These
Hmm.
aren't old rusty wheels. These are
Because we
mint
waste
condition
time.
wheels.
Yeah, we waste time when we do that. We just,
Right.
we figure that we have to, like, oh, I just thought of this bright idea, and why don't we try
Mm-hmm.
this? The thing is like we've been talking about over and over, is that it's already blueprints left behind. Literally, it's I sew.
Mm-hmm.
I sew different items, clothes, bags, whatever. I use a pattern. If I'm making if I want to make the same product, you know what I mean, get the same result, I'm going to use this pattern that it's already laid out for me. You know what I
Right.
mean? And we don't have to redo it all on our own. And like we were talking about with the name of even this show, ASAP, we don't have time. We need to
Right.
start applying it now, and we need to think of this on a community level, on a national level, but most importantly also, doing it on an individual level. We need to start educating our children more in the home. And what I am proud of is seeing a lot of people in our generation. We are being more intentional, about educating our children in the home, buying them books, created by
Mm-hmm.
Black authors, showing them,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because, and people creating games, board games and card games and different things like that, and cartoons, all kind of things to
Mm-hmm.
include our history. Because, like, it's unfortunate that a lot of us, I know, like, for myself, I didn't grow up, you know what I mean, learning these things firsthand from my family. And it's so, like, until we were fortunate to be able to get that education, that higher education, and majoring in African American studies, we got even more than the average student at our university got, as far as our history is concerned. And so
Right.
this is not
Right.
information that's readily available to the public. And so we have to be more intentional about actually, you know what I mean, like infusing that into our lessons, doing it on purpose. I saw a couple states, I think, well, maybe Texas, or I don't even know if it's the whole state of Texas, but I saw that they made like African American studies, or they're making African American studies part of the curriculum. But we need to start even younger. We need to really get it
Right.
in there, because
Mm-hmm.
we need to grow up with that conditioning of knowing, until it's done. We're not done. We're not done seeking justice. So we have to keep
Exactly. And
going.
it's because, like, these things, when you don't know how long something has been going on, it is
Hmm.
very possible for you to not take it as seriously or not take it for granted. Like, people are up in arms about these current injustices, and really, they started to ramp up right after Trayvon Martin, and that's when we really started to see them in the forefront again. Now, make no mistake, from Rodney King to Trayvon Martin, there were so many things that went under the radar that we don't know about. So many
Exactly.
names of people who've been brutalized and murdered in that gap from
Mhm.
92 to about 2012, where everybody thought everything was just, all gravy, and that we were living in some post racial society. They were just experts at being covert. And we cannot let up. We cannot do. And what we did was, the last time we were in this, where everybody was on this conscious level, we allowed ourselves to be lulled back to sleep with a few policies, with a few,
Mhm.
okay, they gave us the Civil Rights Act, they gave us the Voting Rights Act, they,
Crumbs, crumbs.
and we didn't even, we just marveled and celebrated at the symbolism of them being signed into law,
Right.
not reading the actual law, not understanding that we still have to have an collective agenda to make sure that whoever comes into office at whatever level, we mandate that they cater to us
Hmm.
and they do something that is going to benefit us. And so
Yep.
there's so much work to do, but I just wanted to make sure that when we do this highlight reel, Ella Baker is on that highlight reel, and you understand how important she was and how she saw people. She said strong people don't need strong leaders. meaning
Right.
everybody has leadership capacity. If we have a
Hmm.
bunch of leaders, then they don't know who to assassinate. Think about
Exactly.
that. They don't
Exactly.
know who to discredit because
Hmm.
they don't assassinate everybody. They pick and choose. So they'll
Right.
assassinate somebody, and they'll, they know that the people will scatter once the leader is gone. Or
Hmm.
they'll take the leader. What's worse is they'll take a leader and then they'll keep them alive but discredit them. So then even the work that they did in the past is
People
now
don't want to hear it.
invalidated.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's
Exactly.
like so much good has gone to waste on allowing them to tear down our leaders. And Ella
Hmm.
Baker had the strategy, the winning strategy.
Right.
Decentralize, decentralize the leadership,
Right.
decentralize these organizations, and have
Hmm.
everybody work independently together.
Right. Right. And
And
something you mentioned earlier about even like the internal democracy or the intra-party democracy is like, you know what I mean? Like even within our leadership, we are you know what I mean? Like people look down up on them on that method at that time, even like, you know, you don't have a leader making a decision for you. You're gonna ask everybody in the room, you know, for their input on this situation. But it's like, you know, but they were also in a like some people like they were in the South, organizing in the South, and so it was a little more, you know, the danger that they were in, it was a lot more present, you know, than people in other regions. And so
mhm,
people did need to give their consent, like, okay, I do want to be involved in this, or no, I don't feel
right.
comfortable yet with this. And so but I think it's still even a
Mhm,
good strategy, because when we do, and we call it like idolizing, when we want to lift up this leader. And I was talking to you last week, and I mentioned it, how, like, you know, with any given leader of today, somebody who we'll call a leader, we lift them up, we hear they do something that, for example, Nick Cannon, right? He's been, you know, doing all this, talking all this for all this
mhm,
time, but nobody was paying attention to him. And so when he said that one thing, lift them up, lift them up, lift them up, as soon as he says something or does something wrong, we drop him hard. And so when we continuously do this, we want to appoint one person as, you know, this leader. They're going to do this for me, they're going to be so great. How about somebody can start the movement, they can start, you know what I mean, start leading the way, but guess what,
mhm,
you have the power. We've been convinced that us as individuals, we don't hold the power. Even us as the Black community, we'll just say as the Black community, that we don't
yeah,
hold any power, you know. And we do, we, you know, because we can easily step in and pick up where someone else left off. Just say someone died, or someone got sick, or they don't have the funds, or, you know, everybody has a way to contribute, and you don't have to lean on one person to be the leader. Everyone, we're
right.
all capable of leading ourselves.
And
Yeah.
leading comes in different forms. There are people who
Hmm.
lead from the side. There are people who
Right.
lead from the background, like Ella Baker. She didn't want to
Yep.
be in the forefront, but the
Exactly.
results speak for themselves. You can't deny the results. There are people, we need the eloquent speakers. We need those
Hmm.
people. It's not
Hmm.
to deny or denounce anybody at any level. We need all of it collective. It's all
Right.
a part of one puzzle, and we
Right.
need to balance each other out. Everybody has different personality types, everybody has different skill sets. It's like when we talk about Black people being kings and queens, everybody in the society weren't kings and queens.
Right.
However, that doesn't mean
Right.
that everybody wasn't valued. You valued
Exactly.
the agricultural expert, you valued the the person who was the blacksmith, you valued the
Hmm.
person who could shape and form all of the equipment that people needed, the
Hmm.
people who understood the stars, the mathematicians, the teachers. Everybody had value in the
Exactly.
community. If you go back
Hmm.
and you understand pre-colonial Africa, there was so much more balance in the way that those systems were structured, and it was because resources were spread out and everybody had access. So it
Right.
wasn't me putting all of my value into what I could gain. It's me putting value on what I can offer. And
Hmm.
that's what we need to get back to as well. And so we're going to go into the next section, but I do want to Shout out this comment. Glad you made that point. It sounds so cliche, but so many people are out of touch with liberation history.
It's the
We
truth.
definitely need to know the history, or the negative will repeat itself, and then we won't actually benefit from the memory of what we've already done.
Right.
So this section is called Monday Morning Quarterback. For those of you who watch football, you understand what that means. For those of you who don't, it
Mhm.
is simply, usually people play football on Sundays, and Monday Morning Quarterback is when you are in the room, you're in the locker room, you're in the video session, and you're watching all of the plays from Sunday, and you're just reviewing to see, okay, we made this mistake here. All right, we did this good here. Let's put that back in the plays that we can rerun. So,
Mhm.
what we're going to do in our Monday Morning Quarterback is look at some figures and some organizations of the past and look at how they influenced in their own time and how they can be implemented or influential today. So, we're going to talk about the cooperative economics um, of the Young Negroes Cooperative League. And cooperative economics is definitely something that we need.
Right.
We need to pool these businesses together. We need more cooperation. We need more collaboration. We need more structural unity. It needs to be structured in a way that everybody agrees on the terms. Everything is on the up and up. Everything is legal, but
Mhm.
not so much competition. Like that is not our way of doing things. That's so
Right.
Eurocentric. It's not built in us like that. If you look at the way we do anything else, if you look at the way we worship, the way we dance, the way we cook, all of it is more communal. When you are cooking Thanksgiving dinner, it's 50 people in the kitchen adding seasons and doing different dishes. When you watch dance videos on YouTube, you see groups of people. This is one of the things I love about Soldier Boy, is because he brought back that communal dancing element to our
Mhm.
community. Like, say what you want about him, like
True.
it
That's
was
true.
young men in videos dancing
Yeah.
together, and it
Dress
was like,
alike,
man, this
wore
is so
wore
African.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was just so dope. And so we have to take, in our culture where we can find it. But my point being, cooperation is an element that we do in every other aspect of Black people. But when it
Yes.
comes to us doing business with each other, there is this distrust, there is this competitive spirit, there is this, Kendrick Lamar called it, what was the name of that song on Good Kid, Mad City, where he was talking about if somebody made it out of the community, he felt he was jealous of those people because, oh, Black Boy Fly. We have the
Mhm.
Black Boy Fly mentality because if I see one Black Boy fly from my
Right.
community, I believe that he's the only one that can
Right.
possibly make it. So I
Right.
have to try to either hate on him or just fall into a wallowing of self pity. It's
Mhm.
not the case. And we have to get out of that Black Boy Fly mentality where there is more than enough space for us to all build. I am a
Right.
part of a group called the Atlanta Black Chamber. And in the Atlanta Black Chamber, they have groups, different committees for different business types. So all the people who do marketing, they are in a committee together and they talk
Mhm.
about marketing strategies. They all have what would on the outside look as competitive businesses. They are all
Mhm.
in the same industry. They are bidding for the same clients, but the way that they operate is they operate collectively. They support one another. They give one another strategies. Oh, this is what I offer my clients. Oh, wow, that might be something that I can offer to mine. They build each other up because they know that what's meant for me is for me. And it's
Exactly.
all about collective and making sure that your business is still here and it can scale to the next level. And so that's just my bid on cooperative economics. But The
Right.
Young Negroes Cooperative League was something about so Ella Baker ended up being like the national spokesperson for the Young Negroes Cooperative League. But the organization was started by a guy named George Schuler in
Mm-hmm.
1930. And George Schuler,
Was an
and
anarchist.
he identified himself as an anarchist, and he felt like, okay, we're going to use their system of economics and we're going to destabilize it by being cooperative with one another and building up each
Mm-hmm.
other's businesses. And as we
Yeah.
support one another in cooperation, we, through their economics, through their capitalism system, let's benefit and gain wealth in that way. And but during the whole time, we're supporting each other and we're cooperating. We're building up our own community. We're being self-sufficient.
Right.
So now that, okay, this society runs off of capital, it runs off of wealth, it runs off of money. So let's make the money, let's work together, and let's have a collective agenda of what we're going to do when we have a seat at that table. And I believe that it's so necessary for us to understand what cooperative economics can be. What And
Right.
I want you guys to leave this stream and look up Young Negroes Cooperative League. We need this to exist
We
again.
need it. We need it. Seriously.
Like, I mentioned the Atlanta Black Chamber, and it's the Black Chamber of Commerce, of course, here in Atlanta.
Mhm.
And we operate sort of like this, where those businesses are in support of one another. We offer
Mhm.
discounts to the membership. We support each other. They give spotlights to people who are in different industries. And it's just so wonderful that something like that exists. And they have different Black chambers in different cities, but we need those types of groups in the global African reality and all over the diaspora. And so I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew a little bit about the existence of this. And our Monday morning quarterback is always going to tie in, whether it be directly or thematically, with our highlight reel. So we're keeping with that sports element. So Michelee, tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the YNCL and just cooperative economics as a whole.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm all for it. I've always been about cooperative economics. I always even like I try to implement it in my life and dealing with business and things like that. I practice bartering sometimes. I think a
Right.
lot of these are things it's accessible accessible to us, things that we can practice in our daily lives. And in small business, as someone, who I've started small businesses, done business for myself over the years. And I find it very useful. And I think, when we look at the YNCL, like they had farmers involved and, you know what I mean? Like all these different necessary entities within the community. And it wasn't like, like this one company just sees all the success and everybody else, it's no room to compete. And I think especially right now, like in our society, I see a lot of people, even you call them like successful, whatever, however you'll define that. And normally we think about money, how much money you have, and they're calling themselves capitalists and and all this stuff. And it's like I don't think you're a capitalist. You are in that system, but that doesn't make you a capitalist. And I think we need to understand how capitalism doesn't really work for us. Um, and you're always going to need somebody on the bottom, and who's on the bottom, And
Right.
so it doesn't matter if it's in blackface. This is a system that just is not working in our favor, and we need to realize that and really study on it more. And so people get turned off by terms like communism and but they're seeing how other people in other places, how they practice it in other places. And, that doesn't have to be the definition of it. We have the
Mm-hmm.
ability to transform, our situation the way that we need to fit us. And so, yeah, I think the people definitely need to read up on the YNCL and see how they did it. Yeah,
And I
we
think
need to.
there are ways to get to what we want. So we understand the need for socialist programs like welfare and food stamps, and we want universal health care, right? So the thing is, we need to understand that there are elements in the capitalistic system that we need to understand while we exist in it,
Hmm.
right? and and move in it to understand their rules.
Right.
And what I love about YNCL is they understood, okay, we're in a capitalistic system, so we're going to use capitalism to actually fight it.
Right.
Because if you look at anything that happens in this country, most of the time, well, in the United States, I'll say, um, there are lobbies that influence Congress to do the things that they're doing. And we need a black lobby. But in order to
Yep.
have a lobby, you need funds. In order to
Yep.
have funds, you have to understand capitalism, and you have
Hello.
to make sure that you are benefiting from that system and that you are involved in it to learn it. And then we can, in our own communities, benefit each other. If we have the
Right.
wealth, we can decide what to do with it. One of the
Exactly.
things that I love bringing pop culture into this to kind of bring it to reality for people. So James Brown had a song called "Funky President." It's one of my favorite songs,
Hmm.
and I found it because it was in a video game. It was in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and it would just come on to the like the funk radio station. But I
Yeah.
listened to the lyrics. I was like, "Oh snap!" You say, "People, people, we got to get over before we go under. We need to own the. We need to buy the factory and own the job.
Right.
We
Exactly.
need to get together and buy some land, raise our food like the man." It's
Hmm.
like that is so relevant. That's still
Yeah.
relevant today. We
I have a
need
question
to
for you.
go
Uh-huh.
ahead.
No, yeah, I have a question for you though, like just in regards to just how we operate, how a lot of us operate today, because there are small pockets of us who do practice you know, cooperative economics and things like that. And I think on a larger scale though, because you mentioned the lack of trust amongst you know, amongst us as a whole when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
doing business. I witnessed it myself in
Right.
um, you know, in small business, small black owned business groups, small business, you know, things like that. And there is definitely a lack of trust. I think there's also a lack of faith in our ability to do so. And some of it might be like from someone who, you know, they'll just be pessimistic about it. I happen to be a very optimistic person, and I really want us to succeed. I want us to do better. And so I can have a better outlook on it, you know what I mean, or a more positive outlook on it. Whereas some people are like, well, they, you know, even when it comes to leaders, well, they all got shot, so we don't need that, we, you know, that won't be successful. Or we tried that before, we had Black Wall Street, they tore it down, they bombed it, you know. And so I think after a while, because that's like trauma, and you know, you
Mm-hmm.
keep experiencing these things, the same things over and over and over, as we have in throughout this history, throughout our history, in that in well, throughout the diaspora, because it's not only us in you know, in America, but
Right.
we see, I think there is a lack of the ability to just see us being successful on our own. And so people, I think, they will try to assimilate, you know, or accept the system that we figure we have to deal with. You know what I mean? And that's outside of black people, but we're talking about
Right.
black people. You know, there's a lot of people like in certain parties, or you know, whatever political parties, who they don't see it out. They don't see it. They don't see another way. And it's like we don't recognize our power. We don't know what we are able to do unless we do it. You know, we have to start applying it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
So, but yeah.
that's
Go
definitely
ahead.
a problem. So while you were talking, I put up Willie Lynch, and
Hmm.
what you're talking about, that distrust that we have comes from that mindset, and we have been taught
Mm-hmm.
from enslavement to right after that to Jim Crow to all these other systems to not have a trust of ourselves. When you go to
Right.
Africa and you are an American, they will listen to you faster than they will listen to a
Mm-hmm.
PhD from their own country, the person
Right.
who speaks their language, the person who knows the terrain, who knows the society, who knows the culture. But if you come from outside of there, they value your voice more. That came with
And
colonization.
and we know this because we both, you and I, have lived on a continent in different places,
Right.
so we understand. I understood the privilege that I had as an American, what I mean, going over there. And it's like, my college degree is not in this, but people asking to hire
Exactly.
me and they want me to run this and that. I'm like, I don't know nothing about that. Like, why don't you ask your people at this, at the
Yep.
university, to ask them who've been working in that industry. And so it's like, when I think that's the value though of us stepping outside of that environment and getting to see the privilege, like living that privilege
Right.
elsewhere. And so when you
Hmm.
have that experience outside of us, like, it's easier to come back in and say, okay, this is what we need to do. I see the problem. I
Exactly.
see why people are adapting this mentality. And and
Hmm.
so yeah, I think, yeah, that's very important.
And so, I mean, we just have to. The only thing we can do is expose it, like
Right,
bring light to it, and then tell people to stop,
right.
and then offer opportunities. So, like, the civil rights movement didn't happen in a day, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of the times, it wasn't a majority of people that were even participating. It was a
Right,
critical mass, and
right.
that's really all you need to get
That's
things
all we
going.
need.
We don't have to wait for everybody to get on board.
Exactly.
Everybody is not going to get on board. And guess what?
Mm-mm.
They're still going to benefit from the work that we did. Who cares? Are you
Exactly.
doing it because, and I
Hmm.
ask this question, is it wrong because it's happening to you, or is it wrong because it's happening to anyone at all? And if
Bro,
you
that's
feel that
that's the
it's
problem.
wrong, yeah. If you're only in this fight because it's happening to you, then you are a possible neo colonist. So you are what turns into neo colonialism because you feel like it's wrong because it's happening to you, not that it's
Right.
happening at all. So you'll
Exactly.
just get the control and start to implement the exact same traumatic, oppressive system. It's just you are
And
in charge
creating
now.
that problem for someone else.
If you believe
Hmm.
that you're in this fight
Exactly.
because it's wrong that it's happening at all, you will, once you topple it, you will topple it and dismantle it. And so that's what we
Definitely.
are trying to build. Those are the people we're looking for.
Hmm.
It's wrong because it's happening to anyone at all, ever, anywhere. And,
Bro.
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, because I point out this, I realized this some years ago, and having, as I became more aware and still am becoming more aware of different situations,
Hmm.
different people's struggles, even, what I mean, even as a Black woman, I have my struggles, but there are people who have struggles other than myself,
Hmm.
even more struggles. And so
Right.
when I start having these conversations with people and they're like, no, no, we need to do this. That don't matter. No, we're staring away from the conversation. And it's like, I see. I definitely, when I first read about like womanism and stuff like that, from people who led those movements,
Hmm.
those women, those Black women who led the movements of intersectionality. That's going to be important because there's
Right.
a even smaller percentage of us who will actually care to gain freedom for us all. And that's why I do appreciate a movement like Black Lives Matter, who they stated boldly, the people who organized it and and started from the beginning. They are like, we're gonna center this thing around people, you know what I mean, the marginalized of the marginalized, because
Right.
we won't continue to leave people behind. And that's what we do. A
Hmm.
lot of people that I talk to, unfortunately, a lot of our brothers, you know what I mean, I'm fortunate to have a man like you in my life, you know what I mean, and and my significant other, people, men who can be also understanding of other people's struggles, because a lot of times we see the movements centered around, it says it's for us, you know what I mean? But when we say all Black Lives Matter, some people are like, hold up, wait a minute. Well, we didn't say nothing about them folks, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
we have to be, that intersectionality needs to be like, you know, but we're like you said, everybody is not going to be on board. Everybody won't do it. You know what I mean? The numbers, the unity does. It's important because we need numbers, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
move quickly, to move far, you know, but it's really going to be those of us who really care to bring justice to us all. We have to just keep going, because we can't be disappointed that, you know, oh, well, they just don't get it, and be like, well, Black people we just won't get it together. It just has to be, look, that critical mass theory, we need 30% of us who
Right.
will stick to it. We want justice for all, and we have to keep gunning no matter what. We're going to be, so you might be discouraged a little bit by what you're seeing here, but we still have a mission, you
And
know,
I'll
and we
just
just have to see it
and
through.
I'll bring it back to sports one more time. I always say this. People do not build massive stadiums for diehard fans. You have your diehard fans. You have the people who are there whether you win or you lose. You
Mm-hmm.
got the people who are going to be there from the beginning.
Right.
But when you start winning, other people are going to come. But you build the stadium for the
Yep.
bandwagon. There are going to be people
Yep.
who bandwagon the movement. All those people who were at the
Mm-hmm.
March on Washington weren't at every march. They weren't at every
Right.
little meeting. The March on Washington was a big event. It was some
Yep.
bandwagon people there, but you needed those bandwagon people for the numbers to show. Once people see that things are working and moving along, they'll join in. And I'm not the type of person that's going to hold it over
Mm-hmm.
their head like you weren't here from the beginning. Welcome in, brother. Welcome in, sister. Welcome in. You know, thank you for joining. Because sometimes when
Right.
you plant a
Right.
seed, some flowers only
Mm-hmm.
bloom every 100 years. You may plant that seed and you may die
True.
before you ever see it blossom. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't plant that seed. It's not for you to plant the seed just for you to
Yep.
get the credit of having that person get to an awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Like most parents will
Right.
say this, they'll tell their child something 5,000 times and then they hear it from a teacher or they hear it from a mentor, or they hear it from somebody else, the same message, and they'll do it then.
Yeah.
But are you the parent who is going to be mad at that, or are you going to
Mm-hmm.
rejoice in that your child finally got the message?
Finally, you got it.
This is
Finally, you know, and
results
yeah,
oriented. Results. All I care about is the
right.
result.
Because I mean,
Did you
and
get it?
that's even in learning in relationships. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Like in a relationship, and I had to like just even check myself on that, realizing it's like, I done told you this about 50 times. Now your brother or somebody else done told you this on Facebook, and now you want to listen. It's like, I
Mhm.
done told you that so many times. I don't say it, you know what I mean? Like I may have
Right.
mentioned it a time or two, because it happens, you know, it happens sometimes dealing with people. But it's like, it's also how we receive the medicine, you know what I mean? Because somebody might receive it better from, you know, from a celebrity than they would you and I,
Right.
you know what I mean? It might take, you know, like you said with that bandwagon thing, some people might just go because it's popular at the moment, because everybody else is doing it, or because
You
this
know,
seems like the cool thing to do. So I
benefit
don't
from it being a fad, but
I
then have
agree
the
with
have the
you, because I
substance.
see a lot of criticism coming from people who just aware, and they're like, well, you know, stop talking down to people. You just learned this 3 years ago, or you know what I mean? And
Right.
so we should
Right.
keep that. Like I said, I'm very optimistic, and I think people will come around, you know. And so yeah, like we, you know, like I mentioned earlier, you and I had formal education, you know what I mean? Like, well,
Mhm.
we learned it, and you know, in higher education, we learned a lot of this history and about a lot of these people and their methods and stuff. And so we have to be patient, and we have to be like, it's not going to be on me. Like I remember people saying
Mhm.
to me, well, you will catch more flies with honey than you would with vinegar, or something like that. And I'm like, look, you need bitters help people. Okay. I take apple cider vinegar. It helps me. I can chew on some garlic and it'll help me get rid of something. So everybody that is not on that same level, you know what I mean? They don't have to receive inspiration on the same level. I can
My
be
mother and father,
straight,
they used to
no
whoop me
chaser.
and talk to me at the same time and tell me why were they whipping me, and make sure that I get the message. And I was saying that We need to benefit from it being a fad. Wonderful. It's a fad. Having locks is a
Right.
fad. Having natural hair
Right.
is a fad. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now benefit on that fad and then take that momentum and add the substance to
Mm-hmm.
it. So while their attention is there on this subject, let's add the substance into its popularity. Don't be mad that it's popular now. Don't be mad because,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I've been here from the beginning. Now all y'all joining in. What did you want? Did you want
Right.
it to stay
Right.
underground? We want more
Right.
people. So don't you go
Exactly. Exactly.
chastising the bandwagon fans. They just came, they got the jersey on. Wonderful. Now we
Mm-hmm.
cheering for the same team and let's go forward. I don't have time to understand that you
Ain't that
just
what
bought
we
your
want?
jersey
Like,
yesterday
that's what
or
we
does your
want.
jersey have holes in it?
Yeah.
I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
did you buy the jersey? Did the money go to the team? Did the money go toward the effort? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
then let's move. We ain't got no time to see
Yep.
who was day one and day 18. I don't care. Is the
Exactly.
work going to get done? So since we're talking about fad, it moves us
Mm-hmm.
right on into our next subject. We're talking about celebrity. So
Yes.
we have a section of this show called Deconstructed. So we're going to take
Yes.
popular movies, TV
Mm-hmm.
shows, any type of media, and we're going to deconstruct it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's going to be deconstructed positively, sometimes it's going to be negatively. It is whatever the truth is. So,
Right.
for those of you who aren't living under a rock, you already know that Beyonce has released a new visual album called Black is King. For those of you who have been living under a rock, Beyonce just released a new visual album called Black is King on Disney Plus, and it's in partnership with Disney and it's in association with her
Mm-hmm.
album that she released as a soundtrack to the Lion King movie. I
For the
guess
Lion King.
remake, redo, re something. And they re-released The Lion King
Yeah.
with new graphics. And so
Right.
but there's been a lot
Basically.
of course, anytime Beyonce launches and drops anything, there is a massive attention around it. And first, there's the
Mm-hmm.
wave of positivity. Then there's the wave of, oh, too many people are being positive about this. Let me tag
Okay.
in
Let me pick it
some
apart.
negativity. Let me try to and what I've seen is I've seen a lot of over intellectualization of this product. Have you had an opportunity to
Woo,
watch it?
woo. So I have not. I have not watched the whole thing yet. I need to take my time and really sit. And I'm not even. I don't consider myself even a beehive,
Right.
Beyonce fan. But like
Mm-hmm.
I've just come into my fandom of this. So she is the queen. She does her thing. I'm never
Hey.
unsatisfied with with what she does. But I am noticing. I did watch the one video already that she released.
Mhm.
It's already released as a music video. That's a
Okay,
part of
gotcha.
it. But I already knew what Beyonce was going to come with it. Seeing the visuals. I was following. I watched the making of it. Seeing all the visuals, the inspiration that came from it. So I have not seen the full production yet, but I will probably later today. But yeah, Beyonce, I mean, especially as of late, she's definitely been more intentional about creating and showcasing the more positive sides of well, just blackness. Let me read you. I heard talking about it, and she did a interview on the news talking about Black is King, and she said she wanted to shift the global perception of black, of the word black, which is always meant inspiration, love, strength, and beauty. That's what she said it means to her. And
Mhm.
so in her work, in her art, she's been portraying, black as being she said like the history, the purpose, and the lineage, like everything that she's showcasing is her, you know what I mean, reimagining it. And it's like you mentioned all of these think pieces or thinkless pieces, I would say. People are trying to be they're being very critical of it and trying to define it, redefine her art and her
Right.
expression. And the thing is, it's like, she is an artist. This is her art. This is her production. But people are being so critical that they're not even investigating. I think that's the problem of today as well. People are not even investigating before they make statements, because when you can see when she's talking about creating these videos and and all of these things that she's putting in and infusing African culture and Black American culture and all these different things, she is getting opinions and expertise from
Right.
different regions, different tribes. She is aware that Africa is not just a country. We know that, like, people like you and I, even if we'll say Africa, we know Africa is not all one country. We know, like, I can say I lived in Africa. I lived in more than one place in Africa. I traveled to more than one place in Africa.
Exactly.
So it's like, there's like a judgment. There's a judgment. I feel like we often have these conversations since we've been even at Georgia State. I remember we had a program in the Black Student Union talking about continental Africans and African Americans, or Africans throughout the diaspora. And I remember a girl she was like a first generation Nigerian American, and she said something like, she expressed her thoughts on African Americans who are, call themselves, who identify, with African culture, and said something like, we're like fake Africans or something. I don't know if you remember that, but it was a program we were in. And she said something like, we're fake Africans. And I think also there are a lot of people, you know what I mean, who we didn't grow up knowing anything about Africa, or anything we taught about Africa was negative, and and so a lot of us disassociate from culture and Africa. Them thing. We're not seeing each other as one. We're not seeing like Africa. People are not seeing Africa as our home in all of Africa. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't all come from all of Africa, but unfortunately for our situation, we were mixed up. We were, grabbed from this and that, dead like animals, you know what I mean? And so we do have a mixture. We cannot identify with one particular culture. So when we attach ourselves to Africa itself and the people of Africa, we know that we are African people. We are not, you know what I mean, just because we grew up in America, and that's, you know what I mean, and our family is there, that doesn't mean that we are no longer African. And so as we are trying to redefine or just gather our our knowledge on our history, our legacy and things like that, why is there such a pushback when we reimagine our home, you know what I mean, and our glory, like the Blackness and all of our, like, showcasing it positively? We already know, everybody already knows the poverty, the corruption, the this, the that. This is all they've shown us about Africa. So when we do see, like, what is the problem with seeing Africa as being glorious? Like, what is that problem? I don't get it. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I've been seeing the negative,
I've read 3 articles about it, right? 2 were negative, 1 was positive. And I'll just go all the way back to the beginning of, so I said this album was inspired from The Lion King. And as I deconstruct this project and this film, I'll deconstruct The Lion King simultaneously, and Disney. I believe that Beyonce has used her power to right a wrong that I have felt about The Lion King forever. Now, Disney makes movies about people, and they have some movies about animals. Now, even in the movies that are about animals, Bambi, Dumbo, where the animals talk and they're the center of the focus, people exist in that story. You see the animals interacting with people. At the beginning of Bambi, Bambi's mother gets shot by a human, by a hunter. So we know that humans exist in that world. I love The Lion King. It's one of my favorite movies of my childhood. But what I saw was the first time Disney decides to do a movie set in Africa, there's not one person to be found. Not even when Simba leaves Pride Rock does he even stumble across a Maasai walking in the savannah.
Right.
He doesn't see anybody riding on it. There are no people in the Lion King at all.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go to Africa, people don't exist. It's just the
Right.
talking animals. So that's the issue that I had with that portrayal and Disney doing that. And then in the original version, you had Matthew Broderick as Simba, and
Right.
people asking why it was necessary to do a remake, because now you have Beyonce and Donald Glover as the voices of Nala and Simba.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mufasa was always James Earl Jones, but we needed more representation. We couldn't even represent our own voices in the one African story that they decided
Right.
to tell. And so, again, no people, no voice acting. So now we do it again. Beyonce makes an album. So this time, Disney is aware. Okay, let's do this. Beyonce uses her power as
Right.
the influence that she has as a celebrity and as an influencer to say, I want to create this album and I'm going to be unapologetically Black in this
Right.
album. I don't care if it's made for everybody's children. Everybody's children need to know that Black is beautiful and that
Exactly.
Africa is not just a place of, it's not the dark continent. It's
Yep.
not this place that everybody wants to escape from. And
Mm-hmm.
so the imagery put into Black is King to juxtapose with the Lion King that is set in Africa but has no representation of African people.
Right.
She takes she takes the money from Disney, she takes the production value of Disney, and she allows us to see people represented in those scenes
Mm-hmm.
from the popular culture. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, she's using their tools. Like, you know what I mean? She has this access. What more do we? I saw one of the articles, the first article I shared with you, that we read in the author was saying, like, you know, I just expected more. What more? You know what I mean?
And
She's
she
using this
claimed
platform.
throughout the article that she was a Beyonce fan and that she wanted to leave her country to become a dancer for Beyonce. But at the same time, you're talking about wanting to leave your country to get exposure to other things. So what Beyonce is doing is bringing credibility and opportunity for people to want to come and invest in your homeland, to present it in a different light. We know the struggle.
Exactly.
We don't need
right.
So when we tell the story of Roots, right? They don't show us the kingdom of Timbuktu. They don't show us the University of Timbuktu, where Kunta was a Manding. Mm-hmm. So they don't show us the highs before they show us the enslavement.
Right.
So why, when we are exalting the highs in this moment, would we show the struggle? We've seen enough of that.
Right.
And like, even in our depictions of our greatness, there's always somebody else entering in to be either the savior or a hero, even if it didn't exist. Like in the movie Hidden Figures, there's this scene where Kevin Costner takes the sign down from the bathroom that says colors or whites only or something like that. That is historically inaccurate. It never happened. They just added that element because they needed somebody in this movie to say that not all white people are evil. We don't need that. We need the truth. What did we call our segment earlier? Straight truth, no chaser. And every element of white people showing our struggle, they add chasers. No chaser, straight truth. Tell the truth. Tell how bad it was. But now we're telling how good it is. Straight truth, no chaser. We're talking about and in the film. So there's Yemi Alade, who's a Nigerian artist. There's Tiwa Savage, who's a Nigerian artist. So many people have songs on this album that represent different regions of Africa. They represent the Dogon masks. They show the representation of the celestial. They show the ancient Kemet civilization. So she shows the diversity of Africa in the depiction of the film. She doesn't show it as just one big Africa.
Yeah, exactly. And so, because I saw criticism that talking about, wearing like the animal skins and stuff like that, and it's like, well, and even like the horns, I saw even people breaking down. Not even on the, we gonna get on this a little bit later, like, but the horns, as far as like, well, all Africans don't wear that, and I just like when I go and travel about Africa in different regions, because I've been to all corners of Africa,
Right.
and I go to not only the city, not just the big city, because I saw people talking about, well, we have iPhones and wear jeans and stuff like that. Like, yeah, we know that. We see a lot of you, you know what I mean? Like, we know that, but these people also exist in that part. Even some of us who may have come from those specific tribes, or, we see representation, like you said, she's showing representation from all different corners of Africa. And there are people who still dress like that. So now
Yeah.
what's your problem?
Seeing them.
I literally just this past year, this last, past year going, because I personally like to travel, explore within these, like the smaller villages and things like that. And just really, uh, not just all the commercial touristy stuff. So I like to really just get in there when I travel. And I'm like, these people do exist. People
Right.
are wearing horns, and you know what I mean, like for different purposes. It could be like, adornments, or it can just be for a ceremony, or for different reasons. But why is it? I think it is because it's a celebrity, and I think it also is experience of that could be trauma. And I
Right.
hear people, and this is a lot of, like I said, it's like a us versus them kind of separation going on, and
Mhm.
people not seeing that, okay, we also belong, we are you, we are family, okay, we're family,
And
we're
we're trying
relatives.
to reclaim something
We're
that we don't
trying
have access to. And
exactly.
sometimes when you come from a place, and my wife is from Guinea, West Africa. So she
Hmm.
grew up knowing her language,
Yeah.
right? She grew up knowing her culture.
Hmm.
So it's easy to forget that there are people in this world that did not grow up with that. I have taken a DNA test
Hmm.
that traces my maternal lineage to Yoruba, right? So I've been teaching myself Yoruba since 2007. And I, but I don't know my full makeup though. I don't know if I'm
Hmm.
100% Yoruba. I know that my maternal line traces back, but my
Right.
paternal line came back inconclusive because there was
Right.
so much rape that happened to our
Yep.
ancestors during enslavement. So I can't even trace that line back DNA wise.
Yep.
Then we don't know all the paperwork, so we can't trace it back 100% through even the paperwork and the dockets from the ships, because the slave trade
Right.
happened. It continued even after it was illegal. So when it was
Hmm.
illegal, that means that they couldn't have papers on everybody. They didn't have a manifest that
Right.
showed where everybody came from. So we don't know if some of our ancestors were in those last groups of people who came over undocumented and were illegal. And so we don't have that trace, and we long for it. And it comes out in
Right.
different ways. But those of us who can articulate that we want it to be our connection with Africa, allow us to
Yep.
do that. Allow us. And
Yes.
Beyonce's celebrity status is what makes this possible.
Yep.
She has the power to pull on Disney, a big
Hmm.
corporation that isn't concerned about us,
Right.
but they understand that through her, they can access us. She understands
Right.
that she has that power. So she's going to utilize that power and not throw us to the side, but actually present us something of a positive image to show. Do you know how many
Hmm.
times I talk to African Americans, my peers, and they tell me, oh, I can't wait till I get a chance to go to Tokyo, or I can't wait till I get a chance to go to Paris, or I can't wait till I get a chance to go to
To
Berlin.
Italy, or yeah.
I
Hmm.
never hear anybody
Hmm.
say, I can't wait to go to Dakar. I can't wait to go to Lagos. I can't wait to go to Accra. I can't wait to go to any of these places that are just as
I'm
beautiful,
telling you.
just as marvelous, just as historically viable, probably even more so than all these other places that they want to go to that has nothing to do with them. And
Exactly.
now we have somebody in a
Yep.
position of power. We always ask this of our celebrities. Oh, why don't our celebrities actually do something
Yep.
with the money and the power
Right.
that they have?
Right.
So when somebody does it,
Mm-hmm.
you don't find
You
anything to
got a
do but
problem
to
with it.
criticize it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came up with this over intellectualized term, the Wakandanization of Africa.
Wakanda. I was about to ask you. I was about to ask you that one next. I was going to ask you about that Wakandanization, and this conversation is like I see it pop up, and it was Beyonce again, actually, when she had her baby shower. When I started seeing that first wave of conversation from people who can identify with their culture
Right.
firsthand. You know what I mean? Have firsthand experience, know the language, know the foods, and it
Mm-hmm.
customs and all kind of stuff like that. And it was like they started saying all these think pieces or thinkless pieces are coming up talking about how all African Americans are appropriating African culture, and like it just goes back to that thing of,
So
you
stupid.
know what I mean, and which it can, things like that, it I can see how some things can happen, like we, just using things, misusing things, not knowing the and not knowing the significance of it, and you know what I mean, like carelessly using certain the just participating in certain things that's like, okay, this is only if used in funerary purposes, or only during a time of birth, or something like that, which we wouldn't know without the education. But when we
Mm-hmm.
see it and like some of us connect with it, it still becomes a problem. But it's like, well, it's damned if you are, damned if you do, damned if you don't, you know what I mean,
Right.
because we are, like, we've been talking about, we're trying, this is our quest to rediscover, redefine our identity. And we know that we don't come just from this place. We know, you know what I mean, that we come from somewhere else, and it is great, it is beautiful, it is, you know what I mean. So
Mm-hmm.
everything is, we do have to create this narrative, and we know our people first and foremost, because I
Right.
am one who travels a lot, and I prioritize traveling throughout Africa, and so I do make sure, like, yes, we do have poverty, you know what I mean, we got poverty right
Mm-hmm.
there in the States, we know what that
Right.
look like, we know what corruption look like firsthand. We deal with this stuff on our own. So it's like, it's not that we're ignoring it or belittling it, or you know what I mean, trying to leave out that part.
Right. So when you know how much crime exists
We
in New
know
York
our
City,
people. I know our people. I know that they need to see. Exactly.
when you see New
Exactly.
York
So I
City
need
in
to, like,
depicted
because I
in
tell my
media,
friends,
you don't see the crime
mm-hmm,
elevated. They show you the good parts because they
right,
want people to come.
right. Exactly.
So,
So, bro, let me tell you, because people will ask me, well, I'll have some friends that might be, from that region, or have, you know what I mean, have family from there, or whatever. And they're like, well, you can get, pickpocketed or something there. And I'm like, you can get you can get robbed. You know what I
right.
mean? With right there where I'm from. I'm like, you know where I'm from? You
Michelee, you
know where
come
I'm
from
from. Like, you
Compton.
can, this
Tell the
ain't nothing.
people where you from.
I'm
Tell
from
them where you
Compton,
from.
and I know, like,
And and
I'm
and
from
your
Compton,
people
like, and
in
I
Compton are
understand.
telling you that you can get pickpocketed in Addis
Like,
Ababa.
and it's
Like,
like,
girl, I can get
and I'm like,
pickpocketed
wait a
down
minute.
the street.
And it's like, you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't, when we talk about people, like when I talk about even LA, and you know what I mean? Because, and I experienced this is how I can relate to their thinking, is because being from, from California, from, you know what I mean, greater Los Angeles, people are like, um, oh, well, I experienced this when I stepped out of California and went to school in Georgia, and everybody's like, oh, you're from LA, do you know you run into celebrities, and so and so, and and this and that, and describing LA as this, they picture Hollywood. And so
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, and I understand, like, people having this false idea. And sometimes I'm like, girl, you don't want to go down there. Boy, you want to, you don't, you
Right.
dare. You know what I mean? Don't think you can just go and stroll and you just gonna see everything, Hollywood, and you about to go shopping up there, like where they showing you on TV. I'm like, it ain't like that everywhere. We know the realities. That's the thing. But we know, like I was saying before, we know our people. right?
Mhm.
We know our people. We know what they need to hear, what they need to see, because people ask me all the time.
Exactly.
They know that I prioritize travel in Africa. I promote it. And so they're like, well, tell me about this, tell me about
Right.
that. And I know, because if they hear something like, oh, well, the food wasn't that good, or you know what I mean, or if this so and so made me
Yep.
go to the bathroom, so, and they'll be like, oh, I ain't going there ever. We know our people. I'm
Yep.
not going to tell you something that might sway you to where you're like, oh no, because they're gonna, some people without that education, we haven't already
Hmm.
even been educated, negative, news about it. Some people will be like, they'll generalize the whole thing. Like, that was only
Exactly.
one city in one country in the whole continent of Africa.
Right.
And so, no, I'm not going to sway, because we know our people. I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? And so, yes, we know the negativity. We know everything is not picture perfect, but this is what we all saw growing up. This is all we know, is that it's not,
Tell
it's
me a
worthless.
place
You
that
know what I
is
mean? Why
picture
would I
perfect.
want to go there?
I'll wait. Tell me the place that is, because when I hear
Like,
about London, I don't like, people joke about how bland the food is in London, and people still want to go visit. People
still
don't
go.
really talk about all the, guns aren't able to be carried in London, but then so people turn to knives. People are getting stabbed up in London
Right,
all the time,
right,
but I don't hear nobody
right.
talking about that as a deterrent from going. So when we know that the deterrent of going to Africa is on the forefront, when somebody
Hmm.
is putting in the effort to combat the deterrent, then we
Right,
cannot tear that down. Yes, okay.
exactly.
If you want to highlight something, an issue, then
Hmm.
please do so in a constructive way, or just do it. You can do
Right.
that while not tearing down what this other person is doing.
Hmm.
You highlighting the elements that you want to highlight doesn't mean that you have to dim the light of somebody else. And so
Right.
it was just funny to me. And one of the articles was talking about how, oh, she put all the value in being royalty. And in the film
Hmm.
itself, she distinctly tells you that the royalty that she's talking about is more spiritual than it has to do with any type of governing body or king being an actual person who is ruling a government. King in your mindset,
Brother.
queen in your mindset, valued in our people, and looking at Africa as a place of vision, as a place of home, as a place
Hmm.
to return to, as a place to
Right,
honor, as a place of esteem.
right.
So that is her
Hmm.
message. It's very clear if you actually watch it, even if you
Hmm.
watch it passively to be entertained. But if you're watching it to nitpick, then you'll find the nitpicks.
Yep,
And you have to force yourself to find those nitpicks, because throughout it, she tells you
yep.
the intentions. It's just ridiculous. And so
Uh-huh. Right. Like, she's literally verbalizing it. Like, and people are
it's
still, and because, like, in these think pieces and stuff, people talking about, well, do we not value the people who are, who have like food stands, and like, we know we need the medicine men. We need the, you know what I mean? We need the women, the doulas. We know how essential everybody is in the community. But we're not talking about just the monarch. Like, we're talking about, like, black is royal. You know what I mean?
right.
And this is us uplifting us, you know what I mean? And saying, be proud in who you are. Like, she's trying to, like, boost the self-esteem, and people like, well, no, like, I don't know. I
Self-esteem
really
and
feel like it
self-efficacy.
is
She's trying to boost
right,
self-esteem and
right.
self-efficacy. Efficacy is your belief that you can actually accomplish something. So
Yes,
she's boosting
yes.
that because she's showing who we are and what we can do, what we have accomplished in the past to
Hmm.
what we are doing
Right.
now. You hear James Earl Jones as Mufasa
Yep.
talking to Simba throughout the album, throughout the movie, and giving those messages of the
Hmm.
circle of life, of the messages of Sankofa,
Right.
learn from the past in order to get to the future. We hear all of these messages in the film. It's very clear about what the intention is, and people are just finding ways to misinterpret it. And so we wanted to make
Yep.
sure that we go all the way in. And this is not the last time that
Hmm.
we're going to be doing Black is King, because I'm sure Michelee will have other thoughts when she actually finishes it. But
Yeah, yeah.
and we'll actually open up the line for other people to call in and be a part of this deconstructed conversation. Tomorrow we're going to talk about something that has been deconstructed overly as well, and we alluded to it a little earlier, and I'll just leave that as a tease out there for tomorrow's deconstructed. But we're going to move on to the next segment, which is For the Culture. And For the Culture is our segment where we actually talk about things that are happening from the global African perspective around the diaspora. And 2020, for those of you guys who may not know, is the year of return. It is that 400-year mark, right, that we always talk about. So a lot of our African countries who believe in Pan-Africanism were organizing like welcome home parties for people in the diaspora to come and visit the continent. You had the president of Ghana being very outspoken about Pan-Africanism and wanting to offer dual citizenship. You have repatriation programs that are being developed in Sierra Leone, in Nigeria, and other places that are embracing that Pan-African mindset of our ancestors and of the past and present, and just showing us as Africans who are from the diaspora that Pan-Africanism does resonate on the continent as well. So coronavirus did its best job to interrupt our year of return. But what we're doing in African Unity Initiative and so many other organizations who have been collecting and putting on these tours, we're going to be doing tours across the African diaspora in 2021. And I say the African diaspora because our tours aren't only going to be going to Africa. I want to give African Americans exposure to the fullness of the African diaspora. But there are so many organizations that are doing this work, and I want to make sure that we spotlight them. You have Habasha, you have my brother Dynast from Search for Uhuru, who does tours to Sierra Leone and Nigeria, and is always showing videos of himself going back and learning and, you know, sitting at the feet of the elders and so many other people. But I wanted to say this as an encouragement because we feel like the year of return has been interrupted. We have created this platform, these virtual platforms that we can now connect with one another without having to leave our own homes. Like I was saying earlier, I feel more connected to people now than I did before the pandemic because I feel the need to reach out to people. I've connected with Black people in Scotland, Black people in the Netherlands. I know Black people in London now. I have communities I work with in Haiti and Peru, and building connections in South Africa and Nigeria and Detroit and LA and New Orleans, and just bringing all of these flavors together to learn from one another, to value each other. So the year of return does not have to be physical. We can still do the year of return. This platform here, if you want to participate in the year of return, tune into African Unity Initiative on YouTube and Facebook, because we're going to be giving you access to people and voices and work that's being done around the African diaspora, giving you that global African perspective so that you can return mentally. And then when you return physically, you'll return in the right mindset. Because like you alluded to a little bit earlier, as people who've been raised in a system of oppression and a society that's built off imperialism, we sometimes adopt those values without knowing them. So sometimes when we go to Africa, we go with a colonizer mindset, even as Black people. And we have to make sure that we check ourselves and we know what that looks like. Like when we are making investment and have opportunities in Africa, that we make sure that those don't just benefit our self-interest and that it is good for the entire community, that our wealth and our access to be able to make change is actually done in a powerful, meaningful, non-harmful way, that we actually offer assistance. Go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, well, you know, I was there in Ghana for the year of return, the official year of return events over this past holiday season. And I was, we did our little, test run. Let's see how, because we do want to expose more of our people to experience the motherland. And I was able to take my 14-year-old cousin. Well, now he's 15, but he was 14 at the time, and he got to experience, Ghana for the first time. And it was beautiful seeing so many people. That was my, I want to say, fourth time. It might have been my third or fourth time going to Ghana.
Okay.
He had never even been on an airplane before, but
Wow.
we experienced, like, this is the first time even being there in Ghana. And like I said, I've been there a few times before, and it was so many. I would have thought I was in LA still, or like, you know what I mean? It's just how many of us, there were. I saw a lot of people that I even knew, from Atlanta or
Right.
somewhere. I knew a lot of people who were there. I saw, of course, because of social media, we see who's there, who's traveling or whatever. So I ran into a lot of people that I knew there, and we did run into, well, I witnessed, and I already had this thought, because the travel movement has been something that it's been taken off via social media. We see a lot of people traveling. Some people want to do it for the gram, you know what I mean? Either however you get it don't matter to me, as long as you're getting out there. I think it's important for people to experience something outside of their environment. And so I was happy to see all those people, but like you touched on, how we can become the colonizer, you know what I mean, take on that role when we get around other people. It was, I did see and hear of some cases where, you know what I mean, because of cultural differences, not understanding, like, just say for instance, somebody staring at you. I know
Right.
from living in different countries, it's not only in Africa, but amongst a lot of other people, I get stared at all the time, even to this day. You know what I mean? Living outside of the US. Like, for some people, that's just, it doesn't have the same meaning as it does. When I get stared down in LA, it means something different than when I get stared
Right. Right.
down, you know what I mean, walking in across. So I don't, you know what I mean? I knew to look out for these things, like, at first, because like I said, I lived in Ethiopia at first, in Addis Ababa. And so I was feeling the way when I'm like, what y'all, like, dang, I didn't say it to nobody, but I'm
Right.
like, why they keep looking at, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know how to interpret it. I was like, is it disrespectful? Is it like they, you know what I mean? Are they disproving of me being here, or like how I look how I'm dressed? Or I've heard of these situations and seen it in some club. That's a no-no in the ATL or wherever we at in
Right.
America. But it's not the same. Like, we close. It's gonna happen. We dancing, we in here, you know what I mean? People get down.
Exactly.
And it's like people were misinterpreting. It was like so many misinterpretations of, like, interactions and things
Personal
there
space only
during
exists
that
in
time.
the
Yeah,
US. Like, personal
exactly.
space is
And
not
it's
a
crazy.
thing
At
abroad.
all.
Even
At
in
all.
Europe,
At
personal
all.
space doesn't
At
exist.
all.
But definitely, like, the way that the African communities are built, it's all about togetherness. And a lot of the times it's out of
Right.
necessity, and you just are used to being around your people. Like, you don't mind rubbing shoulders with people. When you get into one of those
Right.
taxis, you're gonna be sitting on top of people. Your leg gonna be on top of this other person. Their leg might be on top of yours. You gonna step on somebody's foot. They gonna step on yours. Don't wear all white Air Force Ones in Africa. Don't do it. Like, I'll tell you that right now. You know what I mean? And so it's just ways to travel. It's just the mentality has to change. That's why I was saying, like,
Yeah.
one of the good things about this platform is that we are showing people, like, they can get access to different cultures right here, and then once they actually physically travel, they'll have a better understanding. Because I remember,
Yeah.
the first time I went to Haiti, or when I went to Jamaica, and you see people walking down the street holding hands. You see two men holding hands, and that's just normal
Yes,
because
yes. That's
they're
another
cool. They
thing.
just friends. And it's just
Hmm.
like, that is something that happens in a whole lot of cultures outside of the US. And the US, the US is
Yep.
so Puritan and
Everywhere
so
else, literally.
um right, that's what
Hmm.
I mean. Like it is so it's so so limited. We create these spaces and we create these blockades. So we have Judy. How you doing, Judy? How can I connect with you? I've been having various discussions with people from the diaspora and Africans on different topics related to moving back, etc. So down in the ticker, you can see africanunity.us, and then you also see our both of
Social media
our
handles.
social media
Hmm.
handles, Judy. So you can reach us by DM, or you can visit the website and actually send a message through there, and then
Right. Yeah, Judy girl. Yeah. Holla
I'll
at
put
us,
my
girl.
email in
We
the chat too.
are. Yeah, I'm definitely open. I encourage people to, at least if you, even if you're not even planning on moving there, but if you have any questions, anything that I could answer. And there are plenty of travel like groups, and you can Google, or like on Facebook or wherever social media platform you're using, you can search like, people who live in these regions. To ask, they could be expats, like just say for instance, like Black Americans in Ghana, or wherever, however you want to do it. There are a lot of groups of people, and that's how I find my network, because that's important to me. I wanted, because I don't tend to get really homesick, but sometimes it's people, they'll know your struggles if they know where you come from, and things like that. So
Right.
there are always these type of networks out there available. But yeah, we're definitely open to answer any questions, because like we touched on, both of us have lived in, what I mean, in different countries, and just seeing, like just knowing the customs and stuff like that. Not saying that we know everything. Of course we don't know everything, but if you need any small little
The
questions or
positive
whatever.
thing is we don't know everything and we're letting you
Right.
know, and we're regular people. And so that means
Yep.
that just if we're regular and we've done it, that means anybody can do it. Right.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
there's no barrier. And it actually
Hmm.
gives more people access to realize that they can do more, and that is not a limitation. So I put my email address in. So anybody who's interested in getting involved with African Unity Initiative or knowing more, any questions that you have related to the topics that we discuss, just email me and I'll answer you, and we can, build relationships. This is all about building community. It's about, tearing down that mindset of we all have to be so independent and I have to carry everything on my own, or I have information I don't want to share with people. That's the
Hmm.
work. That's the biggest waste of information on a person that doesn't want to share it. Because what are you going
Right.
to do with it? Where are you going to take
Right.
it? Like, it doesn't
Hmm.
make any sense. And so, that's our last official segment of the day. We appreciate all of you guys for joining. I want to kick it to my sister, let them know who you are and where they can find you, and how they can support your work.
Well, thank you, brother. I really enjoyed our conversation today. But yeah, you can find me, I guess, at on my social media on Instagram or Twitter on Michelee the Maker. I'm just now rejoining Twitter, so you ain't gonna see a whole lot right now. But open to conversation. Yeah, I'm welcoming new friends. You want to talk to me, but I also, well, I'm a creator. I call myself a maker or a creator. I sew different items, and sell them on my website at www.mishmashworld.com. I'll leave it in the description. Leave the link in the description. But I
It's
make
already
various
there.
fashion. Okay. I make different. Oh yeah, I see it right there. I make different like fashionable items, hats, bags. I also make a lot of different custom. I do a lot of custom orders, so that's what I've been busy with lately. I have face masks and all that kind of stuff like that too. So if you want to find me there, you can. And it's like a blog as well. I have like a few blogs that I made on there. More to come. I'm updating right now. So, but yeah, you can find me there.
Great. And so I want to end the show by letting you guys know a little bit more about African Unity Initiative. Our goal as an organization is to make Pan Africanism tangible, like something
Hmm.
that you can actually do. It's not only theory. There are people and organizations doing this work. We are one of them, and we believe in collaboration. I don't believe that we're the only organization that needs to get your attention. So I will have other people on this platform with organizations just like mine so that you can
Yeah.
support them and you can support us, because we need to build and bridge these audiences. I believe one of the biggest wastes of our collective African history is that W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington never worked together. They
Yeah.
thought that their ideas were mutually exclusive when once you actually study them, they
Mm-hmm.
aren't. They
Yep.
both actually fit perfectly together. You need the academic and you need the trade student. They
Yep.
they go perfect together, and they're
They
two
work
paths
hand in
that
hand. Yep.
people need.
Yep.
Everybody isn't going to be in one aisle. And so, we want to make sure that as African Unity Initiative, we push collaboration, not competition. We
Yeah.
push conversation and not argument. We push
Absolutely.
counsel culture and not cancel culture. And
Right.
so we believe in working together, and just follow us at African Unity on all social media platforms. You can find the YouTube channel at African Unity. Everything is simple and streamlined, all under the same moniker, and you can see us and the work that we're doing, and become a member of the organization at www.africanunity.us. African is always spelled with the K, because for us, that means that it is inclusive of the entirety of the diaspora, not only the continent, and those
Yeah.
of us who are abroad. So, again, we appreciate you guys for joining us. We will be here every morning, Tuesday through Friday, giving you a fresh view of these types of topics, a new way of looking at these things. We believe that we are the best form of edutainment. We try to bring in the pop culture, sports references, and still
Mm-hmm.
make it, substantive. And so there will be links in the description for sources to everything that we talked about, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.